Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an episode of the Circle of Hope podcast. My name is Valerie Hope. I am your host. And this podcast is all about talking to people to discover all the different ways that relationships help us thrive and grow. And I mean, what better platform to have for someone to talk about thriving and growing than someone that actually does that professionally with plants. So today, I'm so grateful for Rita Castillo Vela. Rita, you and I met, it's been now, it was is summer 2025. I met in the middle of summer because you hosted a propagation workshop, and my friend Janet and I went to see it. There was something about your vibe, about how you were communicating with the group, the way in which you not only focus, I mean, it would have been easy to just go in and talk about plants and here are all the plants and here's why you propagate. But you actually were so intentional about how to connect us as participants with each other. That was probably one of my favorite parts about how you did it. And so I was like, I need to talk to this lady. Like, I need to know more. So welcome to the podcast, Rita. Make sure, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I I I think I've said this to a couple of people. I was like, she wants to talk to me about about me and my plans, and I was like, great. No, I need to get better, I think, at just giving myself the opportunity to celebrate the little wins and because we don't often celebrate the failures that
Hmm.
teach us stuff
Yeah.
that we grow from. And so I was like, I'm going to celebrate, failures and wins equally
Okay.
and see where that takes us. So thank you so
Good.
much. It's been more than humbling to like take myself through the
Hmm.
thought process of being on a podcast, but we're
Yes.
going to roll with it.
We are. And I don't consider this a little win or a failure. So we're just gonna be like
Awesome.
neutral.
Okay.
It
That's
just is. And I can already predict that there are gonna be more of these for you in some way, shape, or form in the future. I'll just
awesome.
say that for whatever that means. So okay, you gotta walk me through because for those people who don't know what propagation is, maybe just tell them what propagation is in case people are just like, what is that?
Yeah, no. So growing up, my grandmother and my mom and my tias, we all like always had plants around, and we'd go to each other's houses, and my mom would be like, "Ay, me das un poquito de esto," and she'd like just take some scissors or just take a piece off of, somebody's plants, and sometimes like they agreed to it, and sometimes they were like, "Oh, okay, I guess you're taking a." And so we were always like surrounded by house plants of different forms, some really common, some tropical, from all over the place. But it was just like something that we did in my family. We always had
Hmm.
plants and living material all over the place. And so propagation just came really naturally to me. I mean, my
Hmm.
grandmother's house is full of all kinds of different vessels. If it can hold water, then it can propagate, then you can propagate
Yes.
it. And so we put cuttings and grow have plants thrive, and then we share those plants, and it goes on and on. And it's really been
Yeah.
a connector with my family, and we joke about it now between my cousins and I. We're like, we're in our senora era. We want to go to each other's houses and take little snips and cuttings of plants, and we love it. Or I'll get pictures of plants for my cousins, and they're like, "What am I doing wrong?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe it's your bad like juju. Like you need a limpieza. You need you need to
You
be
need to
more
cleanse. You need to
positive. Like
cleanse your aura.
cleanse your aura." So we'll joke with each other about that way, and I'm like, it's probably you just probably need to change the water and give it more light,
There you go.
or give yourself more time with your plants. Like
Mm,
invest that time back into yourself and love on your living spaces, right?
yeah.
So we joke and kid with each other, and then always come back to like, well, are you spending enough time doing the things that bring you joy? If you're
Mm,
not, your plants are telling you
yeah.
that, you need to be investing in yourself.
There we go. Well, I mean, you obviously see I'm also a plant lady. I'm in my
I
senora
love
era
it.
too.
I love it.
can you see, what do you see in my space? I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but
No,
what's
no,
your,
no. I see some great thriving, like I think are those some caladias back there? I see great some pothos. I don't know why I'm pointing at the
I
screen.
don't know what I'm going to
Is that a
say.
money tree in the back?
Yes, this
Yeah, I
one,
see that. That's
nice big
awesome.
one.
That's some great growth. You can
Yeah.
propagate that money tree really quickly too.
Ooh,
Yeah.
good.
So,
Yes. Actually, I had a little tiny one. I don't know if you can see it right back here behind
yeah,
me.
behind you.
This little tiny one, I was just like, "Ah, this thing is just not getting big enough." So I bought this big one at Costco that was like all braided up in the
Oh,
yeah, the trunk was braided, and I'm like, oh, that looks so much like
mm,
visually stunning.
yes.
And all of a sudden it
Then
just
it
started
takes.
to like
Mm-hmm.
I just have so much growth on it. I'm like, ah, prosperity, money,
Yep.
come
Ha
on.
happy plants mean a good positive space. So,
But I got to show you. So you mentioned propagation. So that's really the art of taking a cutting from an existing plant and then putting it in either water or soil
right.
to generate more.
To
And
generate
so
roots, and then that'll
roots.
generate more. Yeah.
So in
So show
preparation
me.
for our conversation today,
Stop. What did you do?
I brought the plants that we started to propagate in our session. So
Look at
here's the
those babies.
one. Look at that. You can see a little bit of
Yeah,
root action going there.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
That's one. Um, this one actually, you gave us this
Yep, the Swiss cheese.
the Swiss
Uh-huh.
cheese one. So that one has some roots there, if you can see. This one I added in here because I needed to put
Hmm.
more. I just ran out of vessels.
Yeah. No,
I
and
got this
the
one when I went and got my mammogram. And
did you
just to
take
let
it with permission
I
or
did. No, no,
okay.
no. I always ask. I'm like, hey, that plant really is interesting. I've never seen it. Would you mind if I take a cutting? And the lady was like, sure. What does that mean? I'm like, do you have a pair of scissors? And I
Yep.
just wrapped it up in some tissue and brought it home. And look at that. We
Love
got
it.
some
I love it.
roots.
I love those two tones.
Yes.
Beautiful. Yeah, that Swiss cheese, well, pretty much and any pothos are really good to like cross propagate because they
Mm,
just release tons of nutrients back into that water.
awesome. I will say that my poor little snake plant isn't doing as hot as it could have. It's not
Um,
producing anything yet. It's not mushy, so that's good.
No, that's really good. And the
Yeah.
snake plant takes a while to root.
Yeah. This is what
Yeah,
I have so
so long as
far.
it's not mushy, it looks like there's a little root in there.
Maybe there's a little tiny beady
Uh-huh.
something.
Just keep doing what you're doing. It'll be
Yeah.
great.
But what you taught us is that I shouldn't put more water than there was a little V cut. So I'm
Right.
like, oh, that's new because I've been killing there's a lot of mushy snake plants in my
Yeah,
past for that reason.
that's the quickest way to get the
Well,
mush.
but I wanted to give people like a visual of what you taught in the class, right? Part of it was just us taking these cuttings, splitting it up amongst the group. There were, I don't know, how many people were in that session? Like
I think there
20,
were,
30?
yeah, there were about 17 to 20 because
Okay.
we sold out the session. And so the session was sold
Mm,
out to 25. Then life happens.
yeah.
People don't make it. And so I think we had about 17 to 20
Okay.
amazing souls that just
Yeah.
came together. And what was really great is like, yes, I knew Janet who had invited you, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I knew a good like fraction of them, probably about 25% of people like I knew, and they came to the class because they were like, Rita, what are you doing now? What is this? And
To
then they'll
support
invite
you.
somebody. Yeah, they came to support me and they invited someone. And then some people just saw the propagation class online
Yeah.
on social media and were like, oh, that seems like a fun night out,
Yeah.
right? And so we had this really mixed group of people from all walks of life, all career paths,
Mm-hmm.
all age groups.
Yep.
And they were just like coming together to have a great time. I think there was like a date night in there, which was really sweet, and just like a girlfriend night in there. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I had a cousin who brought her sister, and her mom came, and so that was awesome to see them too.
Well, I think I sat at the table that had all the fraction of people that you knew because it was like your sister and your cousin. There were like a few people that from
Yeah,
your family there. But you did something that I thought was this is the part that I was really that resonated deeply with me is you had a PowerPoint, like many people would when they're teaching something, right? And you come from the world of education, so that's kind of the thing. You had a PowerPoint, and you would talk a little bit about some of the process of propagation and the roots, and you wanted to have 2 inches before you put them in soil. You did all of that. But then, in between everything that we did in the cuttings, you asked a question that was correlated with the process we were about to do. And you had us around the table share the answer to that question. So, one, I just want to hear, what was the inspiration for doing it that way? Because it could have been just straight up, here's how you propagate, here are the plants, split them up, this is how you do it. But you went a step further. What inspired that?
I think it was a couple of things. I really wanted to be true to the name of my company in Rooted,
Hmm.
and true to where I learned how to care for plants, or where that like spark first originated. And that really came from a collection and connection with not just my family, but with my friends, with my comadres, and really ensuring that we were creating as many safe spaces as possible. The world is really scary right now. And while we can't control a lot of what's going on outside of our own house or our own circle, what we can control is how we show up for
Yeah.
others, and how we invite others to show up in whatever vulnerability level that is. And I made it intentional in saying however you are comfortable. So close your eyes however you're comfortable for the guided meditation,
Yeah.
or reach out and touch someone's shoulder as you're comfortable, for like our ending chant. And it was really like get up and move and meet someone new as you are comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not comfortable enough to be vulnerable, then you don't show up as your authentic self, and
Mm.
you're trying to stumble through words to make sure that you don't sound a certain way,
Yeah.
or are perceived a certain way. And so I was really intentional in how I worded the questions, and making the correlation between cutting a snake plant and asking the question, what have you cut
Mm-hmm.
from the world that's made your stem or your stalk stronger? um,
Yeah.
or really highlighting the imperfections of a Swiss cheese plant, and
Mm-hmm.
what are those imperfections that you want to celebrate or can now celebrate.
Mm.
And so really ensuring that there was a lot of intentionality in the
Yeah.
questions, in order to just really stay grounded and firm in I'm moving away from a career path that I've always found very easy to maneuver, and I was always really good as an educator and as an
Mm-hmm.
education administrator. And I want to be able to still make connection with people and have people feel comfortable. But I need
Yeah.
to also like branch out and make sure that I'm fully facilitating that circle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you just said is so interesting because this idea of creating safety, leading with safety first,
Mhm.
so to speak, like creating a safe
Yes,
space,
absolutely.
it could have been a very transactional event. I mean, I went with my friend Janet, so she and I could talk about anything for hours
Right.
on end. So there
Now
was
we're gonna
no,
have a great
I,
girls' night.
I felt safe. That was fine. If it was just, but then there was something about having to have this level of conversation with people who I didn't know. And then the fact that some of them were your family members, and then they were the quality that they shared with each other, that was also really helpful to have even more depth within that same family structure, was fascinating. And also the connections, like you said, you're really intentional about the types of questions you asked. They were all very empowering questions. They weren't meant to embarrass or ridicule or expose things about people who that we're not ready to. We could be as deep or as lighthearted as we wanted and
Right,
felt
right.
comfortable. So you absolutely did that. Yeah, and I just because I do so much already with plants. And that was the other thing. I think you asked at the very beginning something like, okay, where are you? How many of you are like propagation experts, and how many of you are I don't know what the other two uh, levels were, and I was kind of like, I mean, I do okay. I don't say I'm an expert. Like, don't bring me in to come and propagate stuff for you necessarily. I can take care of
Well,
me. Well,
yeah,
you know, but as you started the session, I was just like, oh yeah, I know that. I do that.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, of course. I have brought players from other parts of the country, you know, and not from overseas because you can do that here. But
Well,
and I'm
we
just like,
won't talk about it if
oh.
we did, though. Like,
But it was also cool to be able to own that. And you, again, you created very intentional levels of conversation to own that. And even to, I think I even commented in the class out loud. I was like, actually, you know what? I wasn't gonna say that, but I'm like, I do know some things.
yeah, and you did.
Oh,
It was great. And then it's always great to build upon what the strengths that other people bring.
yeah.
Because you might ask a question on clarification, which will then lead somebody to be like, "Oh, I don't know anything about that. Can you say that again?" Or,
Mm,
and they might not have done that if other people weren't asking questions as well.
of
Uh,
course.
so I really appreciated um, the different backgrounds that everybody brought in because
Yeah.
some people were like, "I am the dead plant lady. I I heal everything. I'm here because my mom bought me a ticket. Like, what? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
I hope we go get tacos later." But then those same people who are like, "I kill everything," have been sending
Yeah.
me their pictures on Instagram about look at my roots and this
Yeah.
is this when tell me when it's ready to be soiled. And
Mm.
I was like, okay, to put in soil. And so that's always heartwarming to just know, like, I'm still a teacher after 20 years. I'm still teaching and I'm
You
still
are.
impacting, but now it's
You
it's
are.
it's more on the social level. Um I feel like I've gotten a lot of feedback about how I've impacted people emotionally and just
Mm.
provided a space for them to be reflective, and that it
Yeah.
wasn't really something that they intended on thinking about, on a Friday night or
Yeah.
a Sunday night.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's been really heartwarming. I think the other part that's been really maybe heavy on my soul is that my mom's like going through this cancer treatment, and
Mm.
we're going we're doing all of the things, right? We're going to the doctor's appointments and we're sitting at the hospital, and sometimes we get really inundated with all of the things that need to be done,
Yeah.
that we forget to pour back into ourselves. And so
Mm.
when I get a message from someone that's like, "Hey, I'm still thinking about that question that you asked and how I
Mm.
responded, and um, you know what I heard from other people," and I was like, "Let me go back and ask myself that same question. Like,
Yeah.
what am I cutting out of my life to make room for something thriving and prosperous?"
Mm.
So that dialogue with people that I otherwise wouldn't have gotten a chance to meet
Yeah.
has been really refreshing as well.
Oh my gosh, and the one exercise, I don't know if you remember, you obviously remember you
Yeah.
created it, but that I thought was so meaningful too is when you passed around a plant and you asked us to cut two,
Mhm.
right? Two pieces, one for us, or to split it. No, it was
Right.
one, you asked us to split it and to give one to someone in the room that we had not connected with. Right. And I ended up talking to like I don't know, like a 12-year-old or something
I
who was
love
sitting with their mom.
Yeah.
But I thought, and it was so interesting because I remember specifically, and one of them was like a heart-shaped oh,
Philodendron.
philodendron, yeah. And I remember having like a small one and like a big one, and I'm like, I don't give somebody like this little small thing. So I kept that one and I brought the big one, and she gave me an even bigger one.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it was just that moment of like, oh, sometimes we feel like, oh my God, I want something nice. So I don't want to give this whole thing away. I'm going to give, but I think the intention that I had to just share, share the best part of what I got, it produced something equally good or
And
even
that's
better.
yeah, no, and I mean, the point that I'm hearing is like when you share the best of you
You get the best from
without
others. Yeah.
diminishing or belittling yourself, because I think even like women
Mm,
of minority status, like we
mm,
are so quick to humble and diminish ourselves
mm.
and dim our light in order to let someone else shine, or to just
Yeah.
be, not seen as too extra.
Yeah.
Um, so often we're not giving the best of ourselves.
Mm.
And so when we're giving the best of ourselves, that's going to be reciprocated.
Oh my gosh, yes. So tell us, like, what you've made these transitions. You said you went from being an educator, you became a school principal, like you've done so many things. What or how did you find this particular path? What made this help path possible?
Yeah, no, so I taught fifth grade science for
Mm.
a long time at this little bitty amazing school here in Oak Cliff. And so had a great circle of people really just like root me on. And they were like, what you're doing in your classroom, it needs to be done like at the district level. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means. And so then I
Hmm.
went into like instructional coaching for
Mhm.
science. And then I went into administration when I was like, man, there's so many changes that need to be done, and I can do them at a campus level.
Yeah.
And so I was mentoring math and science teachers and how to make your classrooms engaging and how to bring in live um, plants and other organisms,
Mm.
like let's bring in some pets and let's make partnerships. And so I'd always been in the like a very traditional educational realm. And I started to really think like, why have I only ever been in education? And I was like, I
Mm.
know I figured it out. Growing up, the only professionals that I knew were teachers.
Ah,
Like I didn't know any
this
doctors or
example.
lawyers or engineers.
Mm.
I really didn't have access to any other professions.
Mm.
um, let alone like know somebody. And so even in high school, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a teacher. That's what I'm going to be. That. And so I went into education and I loved it, and I loved the impact that I was making. And then right as COVID is hitting, I'm asked to like take on the principalship. And so, I was like, yes, this is what
Mm.
I worked for. I'm going to go and be the most amazing principal. Um, and I worked really hard at it. And I was very pregnant through COVID and my first years in the role. Um, and it was really hard to not see my son for days on
Okay.
end.
Mm.
And it was really hard to feel like I'm not as effective in one role and I'm failing in another role.
Mm.
And it was really weighing heavy on just my soul,
Mm.
my body, like physically was wearing
Yeah.
down. And um when it came time to like make choices about giving my family the dignity that they deserved and giving my physical and mental self the peace that I had worked for and
Mm.
deserved, that I needed to take a step back. And
Okay.
so it took me a while. It took me about 2 years of just like trying to figure out what truly made me happy,
Mm.
and having um, the flexibility to raise my son as I felt he needed and deserved, and to be happy in my day to day and hourly life
Mm.
meant that I had to make some different choices.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
yeah, and so we started piddling around with like I can go and consult and still stay in education. Well, that really didn't give me the hands-on training that I or hands-on like effectiveness that I wanted. And so it's like I love my plants. I love buying plants. I love talking about plants. I I love teaching other people about plants, even if I mean, I've had so many conversations in Costco about like the plants, and I've talked. Costco should actually write me a check for
Oh,
for how many plants I've
you
like
help them
so
with the turnover.
beautifully in
Yes.
the aisle. Um, and so after a couple of months of just like soul searching and figuring out like what makes me happy, and I was like, I just like to piddle. I like to
Mm.
be home and light my incense and drink my tea and piddle with my plants and repot and post pictures. And I was like,
Mm.
I think I could do this and do this in a way in which I can still tap into the educating part,
Yeah.
which I love, and which I love to like model and mentor and connect people. And
Mm.
so I just put those together. So I have a full range of like workshops for children,
Mm.
and for adults, for date nights, for like comadre nights,
Nice.
and then I have like the actual plant merchandise and home
Mm-hmm.
decor space. We're hoping to eventually have a storefront and be able to have like an herbal
Mm-hmm.
tea bar and really tap, yeah, and really tap into
Yeah.
like those ancestral roots
Yeah.
that we've lost through generations of not just colonization, but also assimilation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the work that I'm doing now is ensuring that everything that I'm purchasing is fair trade.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I'm selling and educating on is researched, and honor is given to the people, and the
Yeah.
places and the times
Oh.
that need to be just shine and
Yeah.
have that space to do so. So
Mm.
that's kind of
Wow.
been my loopy journey because it hasn't been just one straightforward path.
No, it very seldom is. It very seldom is. I mean, maybe on the surface it might look like that for some
Mhm.
people, but no, absolutely. And your process, you call your business and rooted, right? And it's off. Everything that you have been doing has been very and rooted,
Thank
right?
you.
In education, the work and life that you infuse those young people with, and then the teachers of those young people, and the
That was always my
administration.
favorite. Yeah, was
Yeah.
teachers, especially new teachers, and so
Hmm.
um, I still get to impact people
Yeah.
and make connections and have them make connections and hopefully network
It's so
during
funny.
sessions. So
I
that's
love that. And it's funny you were talking about your start in the plant world. My abuela, I'm from Panama originally, and so my mom would always talk about how my abuela would go and see a plant and just take off a piece,
Mhm.
put it in her purse, and then just throw it in the ground and
Yep.
phew. She was magical. I think she
Yeah.
was I don't remember that about her. I actually didn't. I mean, I knew my grandmother, and I just never interacted with her about that. I wasn't even radars were just not on plans were not on my radar at all growing up. And then I would say maybe the last 10, 15 years or something is where everything really started to take on a life of its own, to be honest. In fact, I remember going to, I would stay at an Airbnb in New Jersey several years ago, and it was like a little apartment. So I had to go up to the stairs, and they had this Monstera, which are like very popular plants now. It
Yeah.
can be very expensive too. They
Very.
had this Monstera, and one of the branches was kind of leaning into the stairwell, and I was always worried that, oh my gosh, am I gonna like bump into it and break it off or something? So then I was like, I feel like I could propagate this. So
Can.
I texted the owner of the Airbnb and I said, hey, I just wanted to take a picture of this monstera. It's leaning this way, and I just don't want anybody that's like coming up and down the stairs. Would you mind if I take that cutting and propagate it? And her response was she was so honored. She's like,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you for asking, but also I'm so glad that this is going to have a life someplace else. And I just started to notice how plants connected us in ways that I didn't experience in other, there's just something special about plants and the well-being that's associated with it. And I'm curious with you when you think about your family and the people with, you said you were in exchanging plans with your comadres and your abuela and everybody else. I'm curious about what does that do for you all when you guys are talking about plants or piddling around with plants?
Yeah. Yeah, no, amazing question for two reasons. Like the connection that plants give us, one, scientifically, they're our
Mm-hmm.
lifeline and they're providing the oxygen that we need, like the basic need, our
Mm,
basic need, they're providing, right?
mm,
We don't give enough honor to that.
mm.
Um, and we also don't give enough honor to how they're cleansing our space with the peace that they give us, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when you think about the oxygen and the life giving, and you tie it to these women who
Mm-hmm.
sometimes gave you actual life,
Yeah, exactly.
like physically, and then pour their love into you
Mm,
and give you that spiritual
mm.
life, that spiritual connection that you need. The plants and the cuttings are then just something tangible that you can see being given back and
Yeah.
forth, but what you don't see is them breathing life back into you. And
Mm.
and I one of my very best friends, Lena, her mother-in-law started giving her plants and cuttings, and she was like, I don't have time for this. She was, at the time, she was raising two young kids, and she's like,
Mm-hmm.
please help me take this plant. And as those cuttings started to flourish, she was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I think I want that back. And I was like, well, you can have a cutting. You can have a cutting back. And I was like, what did your mother-in-law say when um, the plant that she gave you wasn't at your house? She was like, I was just really honest. I told her I gave it to you, and she was so honored that the
Mm.
plant had been gifted to someone else. And
Mm.
I think there's something to be said about giving of life
Yeah.
and like as a woman, but then giving
Mm.
a plant that is also something living, and that you share that connection. Um,
Yeah.
those roots were started in someone else's home, in someone else's life, and someone
Yeah.
else's love, and they're giving that to you. And it's
Yeah.
just a never ending cycle because I'm going to cut that plant up and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to gift it to someone else and have them,
Yeah.
have those roots have started in my home. And um, I think it's the real tangible nature of gifting, um,
Yes.
that we often sometimes forget to make that connection that came with love.
Mm. So true. And it seems it could be like the transaction. You have a plan, you get a plan, you give a plan. Like it could be that transactional, I think. But I think all the meaning that you've just shared and the symbolism, right? That what that plant really what it required to grow and to thrive to the extent that you could give it to someone else,
Yeah,
or what it took for you to be able to take that and nurture it back into health, or to for it to thrive in order to so that would be you know the what's the word I'm thinking about, you were entrusted with something that you then invested your time, energy, lifeblood, whatever resources that you could then give to someone else. um
absolutely.
yeah, that's something that's I don't get to talk, about plants like this
Yeah.
very often. And in fact, I remember going to the Dallas Arboretum had a houseplant event a few months ago, and it was a small event. I think this is one of the first houseplant type things, and there was a woman who was selling vessels for propagation, actually,
Mhm.
and had different cuttings in these vessels. And I was more interested in the cuttings because I'm like, "Ooh, what plant is that? Ooh, I
Yeah.
haven't seen that before. Ooh, that one's cute." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I just got this from this other lady." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I wonder if I can get a cutting of that." And she's like, I don't see why not." So she's like, "Actually, no, take the whole thing." So she gave me this
Oh.
cutting. She gave me a couple of different plant, and
Uh-huh.
she's like, and then we're talking about her artwork and everything that
Yeah.
she's put together, and she's like, "So do you want to buy anything?" And I was like, um,
Uh,
the cuttings for now are fine." But
on to the next venture.
I didn't, I think. I ended up buying a vessel from her. Actually, I should, here, I'll share it with you. I don't remember the name of the company, but I'll put it in the show notes to give her
Yeah,
credit. So this is a vessel that she built,
beautiful.
right? And then you can hang it on the wall if you want to. And then the plants that she gave me is this one,
Yeah,
which I
okay.
just thought was so stunning. And this
I know that.
pothos that just looked like a very, just such
Yeah,
an
that's a
interesting
pearls
variegation.
and jade
Mm,
pod.
yes. Oh no, this was the enjoy. I think this was the enjoy pothos.
Okay.
That's what she called it. And I can't remember. This one has like this
Mm,
little like, spotted kind of
yeah, no,
like
it looks
that.
a little. It's just a little fuzzy on the online, but
Oh,
we'll look
yeah.
around.
Oh, yeah. I'll send you a picture.
Okay,
But
perfect.
what was interesting, and I didn't anticipate this, let me put this away before I spill everything. What I didn't anticipate was how moved I was that she would give of her display
Mhm.
so selflessly,
Yeah.
right? And as she was putting it, she was like, "Well, let me give you a jar or something to put it in." I was like, "No, you know what? What am I doing, Valerie? Hey, buy
Yeah.
the thing.
Buy the vessel.
Buy the vessel. What are you talking about? What are you trying to do here?" And so I ended up buying the vessel, and but I was way more enthusiastic and felt more honored to have received the cutting than just the transaction of buying a vessel from this person. Although she put all the heart and soul and talent into it. But so I'm just curious about your take on that. That for me was kind of like this very selfless moment from
Mm.
someone who was actually there. She was there to do business, obviously. But I'm curious about your take on how, why, and how people are inspired to give when it comes to plants.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really, it's. I have tons of stories about like giving and exchanging of plants, and then there's also very recently this giving and exchanging of energy that
Hmm.
from other small business owners. And so
Mm.
there's some great business owners like here in my immediate, vicinity, and whose books where we hosted the workshop is one of them. And the energy that's been linked to, yes, of course, um, tell me about this plan and how do I propagate this plan? And I'm getting pictures in my DMs. And I tell people
Wow.
all the time, like I used to get very different kinds of pictures in my DMs. And now in my senora era, like all of my DM pictures are like plants and roots, and I'm loving it. Um,
That's I hope that's a
I mean,
positive for you.
yes, I'm sure my
It's
husband
different.
appreciates
It's
that.
different now.
Yes, it's very different. Um, but
Ah,
that those conversations that stem from very basic like plant care
yeah.
and planting techniques have evolved into also don't forget to do this,
Yeah.
tax exemptions and let me
Yeah.
tell you the difference between your, these different tax forms. And
Hmm.
um it's just it all goes back to an exchange of energy, and that energy that we're exchanging in plant cuttings or actually potted plants, and that energy that people are exchanging in wanting to see my business or other people's business flourish has
Yes.
really been impactful in a way that
Mm.
um, has really become spiritual.
Oh,
And
wow.
my morning coffee, for example, as I'm stirring, I set my intentions, I say my prayers,
Hmm.
and then those coffee grounds go into my compost and to fertilize my plants. And I always make sure to say an extra little prayer for all of
Hmm.
those who are struggling to launch their business dreams, their family
Yeah.
dreams, all of those who are wanting to fertilize
Hmm.
notions that women can not be mother and wife and business owner and career oriented, that they find the path for them.
Hmm.
um so while again like we're exchanging these plants, whether cuttings or small leaves or full
Hmm.
pots, um what's really been impactful is the amount of energy that
Hmm.
people are so willing to give one another.
Yeah.
and really cultivating those circles in a way that you may not be able to provide that energy flow back to
Mm-hmm.
them right now, but in some way or at some
Yeah.
point, your one little cutting or piece of knowledge will transfer to them or to someone else. So
Mm.
that's that's really been what's stuck with me through my whole like
Yeah.
plant journey.
Mm. I think what resonates for me and what you shared about, especially supporting other business owners. My business is called Connected Joy, right? I'm a leadership coach. I know we don't know tons about each other, by the way. We
No,
literally
we're just
met that one time
yeah,
and spent that little workshop time
45
chit-chatting.
minutes together.
That's it. So,
Yeah.
I'm a leadership coach, and for me, it was all about tapping into what makes me come alive. My favorite quote from Howard Thurman is, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it." Because what the world needs are more people who have come alive. And so, what I'm noticing, especially as a business owner, is I love to see people coming alive and doing something they love, they appreciate, they would go out and go above and beyond to learn. There's just something so inspiring about that. And that's how I want to nurture other business owners. When I see that, not just somebody going through the motions because they just, I mean, not no shade, but people got to do what they have to do to take care of their family and their friends or whatever their responsibilities are. So it's not about that, but there's something so special that when, I see someone like goes not just above and beyond, but their heart and soul are infused in everything they do. That's really what I'm supporting, is whether they do it in the form of a business or if they're doing it in a nonprofit or whatever. I'm just so thrilled to support people financially or with advice or with, just, hey, check out this business.
Yeah.
I will go above and beyond if I can. So what draws you to want to support other people? Like, what inspires you to give?
Um, I I joke about the dead plant lady all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so and people say, "Oh, you have to come back. You have to take this plant off my hands. I'm killing it," or the cuttings that you gave me just aren't like thriving. And I was like, "Don't be the dead plant lady." But also, sometimes we have to be the dead plant lady. We
Mm,
have to fail. We have
mm,
to take the risk. And celebrating those failures and celebrating the risk that we're taking that may take longer for us to launch and to thrive in has really been like my motivation
mm,
because every single time I fail or I see someone else struggle, their comeback is
mm.
just so admirable, um, that I'm like, what's your next failure? Like, what is it that you're going to go after next that you're going to learn from? What is my next failure?
Interesting.
Because I don't know all the things that I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to know to be a quote unquote business owner,
Mm-hmm.
um, or even an educator. So what is my next big fail?
Mm-hmm.
Because that comeback is going to inspire somebody.
It comes
Because
with a
other people,
lesson.
yeah,
Mm.
other people's comebacks have really
Huh.
just really launched my okay, it's gonna be okay to fall flat on my face and I'm gonna get
Mm,
up and I'm
mm.
gonna cry because I'm a Chiona. Like I'm going to cry. But then I'm gonna get up and take care of business. And
Mm.
so, more often than not, I really appreciate when people who are giving me advice or who are just sitting and talking to me, and it was like, yeah, like I really bit a big one on, X, Y, or Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is how I overcame it. And so I
Mm.
think that's being in a space where people can be vulnerable
Yeah.
and you doing the same has really been motivational in a way that sometimes people don't celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I just want to be that person.
Going to be that person for others. Well, let's go there. So I think this is really helpful for people to actually see what that looks like in action.
Okay.
I remember years ago, there was actually 2008. The market had gone. I was working in hospitality and human resources. And I talk about a little bit of this in my TEDx talk, so I don't go into the whole story. But I remember that the day I found out that they were going to be laying off people from our office, there were 8 of us, and they were going to be laying off people. And I knew I was on the list because I was a recruiter. And I'm like, they don't need anybody to recruit, no one to recruit anymore. And all my thoughts were about like, but I've been here so long, and how come me? And I remember like, are people talking about me? I'd walk into a room and people go silent, and I'm like, I know they were talking about me.
Mhm.
Like my mind was just like in the most fearful, most unproductive place ever.
Mhm.
And in fact, I did have a conversation with my boss that told me, yeah, Valerie, your role right now is not needed. And it wasn't if it hadn't been for a conversation I had with my brother after that day, because that day was horrific. It was
Mhm.
like fear was just following me I was dragging it behind me like a cloak. Everywhere I went, I just felt like everybody was looking at me. I had all kinds of crazy thoughts and notions. Then I talked to my brother, and then one of the things he reminded me about was like my gift, my strengths. And
Mhm.
if I could take those strengths and apply it to this challenge. So rather than just getting wrapped up in the challenge and the layoff and all the craziness, like how do you take this thing that you're already good at and flip it so that you can use that same tool? And that helped me come out of that with a much more empowering context, was way more productive, and I was able to work my way back into a role. So it was absolutely taking that potential failure. But I don't think the failure was in the potential of getting laid off. The failure was in my mental mind, my mindset about it was the failure. It's always, I think it's usually what
Yeah.
we do with our minds
I
that,
mean,
that creates the
we're our
problem.
harshest critic for sure. And then when you add on that you're you're in a role and working for someone else and working
Hmm.
for someone, to be productive for others at your job, but then you come home and you still need to be productive in in those roles,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And so how do you split that energy in a way where you can eventually feel fulfilled in both?
Mm,
And I think that was my where my failure came in,
mm,
that I had to make some hard choices about what it meant to feel fulfilled,
mm.
um,
Are you
after.
talking about the transition from school to your own business?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
think, for sure transitioning out of a role as a school administrator in
Hmm.
light of, being able to fulfill, like, what I felt was more important at the time, which is taking care of my family.
Yeah.
Um, I that failure was a switch in my head that I really had to be
Mm,
intentional in making, like, I I'm feeling like I'm failing my family, and I'm failing
yeah.
my work. I'm failing my
Mm,
students, I'm failing my teachers,
mm,
and at some point, I had to make a choice, like, Um, I could have easily gone on FMLA for my physical and mental health.
yeah.
But then my school, which I loved,
Hmm.
which was my first baby, would have been left without leadership.
Mm,
And so I made the conscious decision to, like, step back to place them in the best position possible so
yeah.
that I could go and be my best. And my
Mm,
best wasn't mom and wife first. I
mm,
had to take care of my mental and my physical
yeah.
well-being so that I could show up for my family, and that
Mm.
took a lot of work within itself.
Was that your
Um,
own realization about you, or were people in your life holding up a mirror? Like, how much of this was you, and how much of it was
I
reflected by other people?
I really wanna say that it was other people, but the truth was it wasn't, because
Mm,
at the time, I had built up a wall that even my closest people couldn't see through.
yeah.
They knew Rita, the headstrong, badass like educator who's there for her kid, her students, and her teachers and her family, and she can do all.
Mm-hmm.
That was the wall, and that was a persona that I had worked 20 years towards, right?
Yeah.
And that was no longer true every day in every way.
Mm.
And there wasn't enough pockets of that truth
Yeah.
to really see me through. Um,
Mm.
and so now I'm very intentional. And like one of the pre questions for this podcast was like, how do you cultivate your circle, or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I'm very intentional and honest with who I engage with, and I love networking and I love bringing people together, but my inner like circles,
Mm-hmm.
whether they merge into one another or not, are very curated,
Yep.
because I need people who will say, here is your mirror. 'Cause girl, you ain't looking at it. What is really going on?
Yep.
Um, because it took a lot of work internally to get me there.
Mm.
And what I will say is I knew I had the support system. I
Yeah.
just hadn't been honest enough with them to tap into it.
Interesting. So what finally was that moment where you were able to just, okay, I need to own this and break through that wall that you've built
It was really some ugly and intrusive thoughts
about you?
about myself. Like
Oh.
I think I was, pulling 16-hour days, 14 to 16-hour days regularly, and having to go commute home. And I was like, if I don't make it home
Mm,
for whatever reason, then at least I won't have to pull another 14 to 16-hour day.
man.
And I was
Yeah.
like, what? Hold up. Like,
Dark.
let's
Yeah.
take that darkness back, because
Mm,
um what would I say to my best friend or my cousin or my sister if they had
mm,
said something like that? And I had to be intentional about writing down my response to those thoughts, and then figuring
mm,
out, like, how am I going to get a clearer plan of
mm,
of not what needs to be taken care of who needs to be taken care of. And that was me. I needed to take care of me.
of you. Yeah.
Um, and that really did start with like some reflection, some prayer, and then letting those closest to me, those people that I knew loved me, in.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, like, I guess handing them the mirror to hold up, because they didn't know at the time that I needed that. So
Mm.
it was
Wow.
so I guess going back to like the first part of our conversation is that the intentionality and the questions that I script for my workshops,
Yeah.
um, are really based on things that people aren't asking themselves, because I know I wasn't asking myself those questions.
Mm. Oh, yes, this is, I think this is a piece where we underestimate. This is all about creating a circle, right? You
Mhm.
said you're really intentional about curating your circle, but we have to empower our circle to be able to support
Absolutely.
us and guide us.
Mhm.
Right? There's no way that the circle will be effective. I know sometimes I talk to leaders who are like, "Oh, I don't have anybody. Nobody wants to help me. Nobody, people."
Yeah.
That happens sometimes, but often it's because we haven't taken the responsibility for how we're showing up for those people. We
Mhm.
haven't built the sufficient levels of trust. You talk about it in relation to plants, that sometimes you have to change the water, sometimes you have to give enough light. You need to get a good couple inches before it's
Yeah.
ready to go into something more permanent, right?
Right.
And so I think with people is the same, that we have to show up a certain way in order for people to want to support us, to feel safe enough to give, to hold up a mirror, because that's kind of risky, especially if you're headstrong,
Mhm.
assertive, which I've also been known to be, very direct,
You
opinionated,
know.
and all that. Um, and I don't give my mirror to just anybody. I don't give people that access all the time. And I want to say now, especially at this point in my life, my senora era, I'm
Yeah.
gonna adopt
There
that.
there you go.
hmm Um, I'm very intentional about who gets to hold it. People come with mirrors all the time. Don't get me wrong.
Right,
I got a
right,
lot of people who might want to say and do things and want me to change how I approach things or whatever. But I do think this idea of being intentional about curating who you hand that mirror to, who you cultivate enough trust and safety so that they
right.
can actually hold it and you will receive it. Like all of those things are so meaningful.
Yep.
Oh,
And it goes back to how you fertilize your own soil,
yes.
so that you can plant those roots. And
Mm,
I've had to do a lot of, again, internal work to figure
yeah.
out like who is it that I need, because I need different people and different attitudes on different days. And so
True.
I've also become very specific when I pick up the phone to talk to people about something. Like if I need something, I'm like, "Hey girl, where are you? How are you? Do you have time? I
Mm-hmm.
need to vent a little bit, but if you're not in that space right now, physically,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, emotionally, we're good. Just let me
Yep.
know." And it's
Yep.
the friends who have told me like, "You know what? I'm not in a good space right now."
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people that I trust most, because
Yeah.
if you can't say, "I'm not there
Mm-hmm.
yet and I won't be able to give you what you need because I need something," um, then how can I trust you to give me good advice or
Mm.
give me a full ear? Um,
Yes.
so just being honest with where you are on that sounding board, like
Yeah.
hierarchy,
Yeah.
um, has really helped me know what relationships I can continue to build trust with.
That's really, it sounds so sounds so calculated, right? In
It
some ways it
does.
could. It
It
could, but I
Yeah,
think what you're
and I'm
saying is
gonna
really
own it.
responsible. No,
Mhm.
but that's super responsible to ask for what we need. I think sometimes, especially with close friendships or close relationships, we hope, hey, you got to be ready. I
Yeah,
am ready to talk, so you got to be ready to listen. We have some of those unmet, expectations, and I think that's one of the reasons we have so many unmet needs. In fact, I was asking my boyfriend the other day, I was just like, what would it take for me to communicate? If I wanted to have a conversation and ask you questions, what would be the best way to set that up?
yeah.
Right? Because there've been some trial and error in
And
some
that's so
ways.
fair. Like
Yeah.
I think there's yeah, it could be viewed as like a calculated effort to get what you need, but also like it's a calculated effort to ensure that you as my girl um are ready
Yes.
to take in extra like
Yes.
stress or baggage, even though it's not yours. I know
Yes.
that you love me, and so I'm sharing this with
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay to take this on? And
Mm.
I think that's part of just being in a compassionate and caring community and
Yes.
curating that compassionate and caring community, is that you also have to be okay if your girl tells you, "I'm not there right now.
Yeah.
Like
Ah.
I need some time, I need some space, or I haven't eaten." Nobody no nobody wants to hear you vent while they're hangry.
It's so true.
Like
So
sometimes we just
true.
have to be there.
What a level of presence and self-awareness, I think what you
Girl, I
just
work at it.
expressed.
It's like
Yeah.
I work
Wow. Mm.
on it every day. I was about to say every morning because
And you're
as I'm
stirring that
still
coffee.
I'm stirring that coffee, that's always one of my
Intention setting
intentions,
time.
is
Yeah.
just to be present, to be okay with not being
Yeah.
perfect.
It's interesting you talk about setting that intention in that way. And one of the things that I do, I have a meditation practice. And at the end of my meditation, or towards the end of the meditation practice, I ask that this meditation serve anyone I talk to, anyone that talks to me, anyone that comes to me, anyone that I come to, anyone that passes me. Like it just my being,
Mm,
right? Basically is what I'm
absolutely.
saying. That just my being be a blessing. May my being be a blessing to anybody I come across. So that the vibe is always there when I set the intention for it to be there, right? But I think what you're saying is to extend that beyond just a thinking or the setting of an intention on our own, is that you're actually helping other people set an intention for the conversation too.
Yeah,
You're inviting them to be honest and to inviting them to be present and aware of what they need at that moment and what they're able to provide. I love that. What a great takeaway.
Thank you.
So,
It takes practice.
right. I mean,
It
living takes practice, Rita.
it takes practice. It's just and
It
never
takes practice.
yeah, it's ever evolving and
Yeah.
um I mean, I've had a girlfriend say like, if I answered the phone, I'm good. Like, give it, what's up? What's going on? I answered the phone. If I don't answer the phone, then
You know, it's not the
yeah,
time. Yeah, some of
good,
us are that
good
way.
or
You're like,
bad,
send me a
I couldn't do
text.
it. Yeah,
Send me a text. I'm in a meeting.
yeah, yeah,
Rita,
for
this
sure.
has been so lovely.
No,
Thank you
my
so
pleasure.
much
Thank you
for
so much.
sharing. How do you feel now that you had all those thoughts earlier about like, oh, what am I going to talk? Why is she inviting me to a podcast?
I
What
know.
are you taking away from this conversation? What has it been like?
I think what I'm taking away from this conversation is that the the way that I'm fertilizing these relationships
Yeah.
um has been a blessing in its own method,
Mm-hmm.
and that I need to continue doing the work because what I'm bringing to a podcast or to a workshop or to a pop up or even into a conversation um, is building my hope and my resilience
Mm,
for the work that I want to continue doing and just community
yeah.
and building, but also that's allowing other people the space to do it too. And if
Mm-hmm.
nothing else, being able to provide the space
Yeah.
to someone else to thrive and grow with or without a plant in their home.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Even
I'm
if you're a dead plant lady.
even if you're a dead plant lady, at one point that plant was living and giving you
Yeah.
energy and oxygen.
Yeah. There you go.
So repot and refertilize and reflourish.
Plants are, yeah, they can be very forgiving too.
Yeah.
So they come
Yeah.
back.
Ask my
Rita.
peace, Lily. That demon.
Yes, you told us about it. Yeah, mine is working its way through. I forgot to show it to you someplace else now, but yes, it's coming. It's on its way.
Good.
But I'm so grateful. Thank you for
Uh,
saying yes and being open to sharing what you
Thank you
shared. I
for having
do
me.
think
This has
that,
been awesome.
the message that you bring and the business that you have, I think is really supporting a whole level of presence and awareness, self-awareness, and being able to share it with such a tangible and a tangible and symbolistic, and just
Thank
such
you.
deep symbolism with plants. And so, and I appreciate having someone to talk to about plants now.
Yeah,
So
anytime. Slip
you
into
might
my
be getting
DMs,
some
girl.
DMs.
Anytime. I love it.
Well, thank you so much, Rita.
Thank
Hang
you
out
as
here for a
well.
second. Everyone that's been tuning into this, I will make sure, Rita, we put your information in the notes. So if anybody wants to follow up with you, send her some DMs of appropriate plant pictures, or even just find out a little bit more about how they can connect with you and all the different offerings that you have. The link will be there. Thank you all so much. Take care of your plant people. Take care of your plants, and have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Circle of Hope. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share with someone in your circle. And if you're curious about the upcoming book, visit valeriehope.com for updates and extras. Until then, stay connected.